Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I have this weird allergy to alcohol-based products, hand sanitizer, antiseptic wipes, even regular soap sometimes. They all make my skin break out in painful rashes and welts. I can't even have a drink without my lips puffing up like balloons. It's been a pain my whole life, but I learned to manage it by bringing my own soap to work and avoiding the usual stuff everyone else uses without thinking. For 3 years, I worked at this mid-sized office doing data entry. My cousin was my boss, which made things easy. He knew about my allergies from family gatherings where I'd have reactions to different things. So when I started working there, I didn't even need to explain much. He just told me to do whatever I needed to stay safe and healthy. Then the pandemic hit. At first, nothing changed much for me because my cousin understood my situation. The company started putting hand sanitizer stations everywhere and requiring people to wipe down their desks, but he made sure I had alternatives that worked for me. But then my cousin got promoted and transferred to the main office across town. I was happy for him, but I was also worried about getting a new boss who might not understand my medical situation. The new boss started on a Monday. By Tuesday, we got this long email about updated safety procedures. Everyone had to use hand sanitizer when entering the building, leaving the building, before meetings, after meetings, and basically every hour on the hour. We also had to wipe down our desks and equipment with antiseptic wipes twice a day minimum. I knew I had to act fast. I sent an email to Human Resources explaining my allergy and attached all my medical documentation, doctor's notes, allergy test results, everything. They responded within a few hours saying they understood and that they'd put a note in my file exempting me from using those specific products. Feeling relieved, I forwarded the same email with all the medical documents to my new boss, thinking it would be a simple matter of keeping him in the loop. His response came back within 30 minutes, saying that all employees must follow new safety procedures with no exceptions whatsoever. I stared at my computer screen for a few minutes, then typed back explaining that I literally could not use these products without risking a trip to the hospital. I even mentioned that I carry an emergency medication injector because some of my reactions can be severe. His next email was even shorter, saying that any employee who fails to follow safety procedures will be terminated immediately. I forwarded both emails to our union representative and sent copies to Human Resources. The union rep called me within an hour and told me this was completely unacceptable since I had documented medical exemptions. I explained that my boss seemed to think I was making it up or something. The union rep assured me that they and HR would have a conversation with him and told me to keep doing what I'd been doing and ignore him unless he actually tried to fire me. Human Resources sent me a similar message, assuring me that they would handle the situation and that my job was secure. Thursday morning, I walked into the office and found my new boss standing right next to my desk. He was holding a large bottle of hand sanitizer and had this smug look on his face. He told me it was time for my mandatory hand sanitizer application. I explained again that I told him in my emails that I can't use that because I have a severe allergy. He demanded that I hold out my hands. I refused, saying I'd rather not go to the hospital that day. His voice got louder. He accused me of thinking I was special and trying to ignore company policy just because I didn't feel like following rules. I tried to explain that it wasn't about feeling like it, and that I had medical documentation, but he cut me off. He said he didn't care about my documentation and that everyone uses sanitizer with no exceptions. Before I could react, he grabbed my left hand and squeezed a large amount of sanitizer directly onto my palm. Then he used his other hand to rub it in, making sure it spread all over my fingers and wrist. The burning started immediately. I tried to pull away, but he held my hand tighter. I told him to let go because I needed to wash this off right away. He accused me of being dramatic and said it was just hand sanitizer. I managed to break free and started rushing toward the bathroom, but he stepped directly in front of me, blocking the hallway. He told me I wasn't going anywhere until I admitted I was lying about this allergy nonsense. By this point, my hand was on fire. I could feel the welts starting to form, and my breathing was getting shallow. The familiar tightness in my chest told me this was going to be bad. I begged him to please move because I was having a reaction. He told me to stop being so dramatic and insisted there was no such thing as being allergic to hand sanitizer. My vision started getting fuzzy around the edges. I pushed past him and made it to my desk where I kept my emergency medication. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the cap off the injector. My boss asked what I was holding and accused me of doing drugs at work. I managed to inject the medication into my thigh just when my throat started closing up. Several co-workers had gathered around by now and someone called for an ambulance. Even when the paramedics were checking my vital signs and loading me onto the stretcher, my boss kept shouting that I was faking it and that this was all an act to get out of following company policy. His voice followed me all the way to the ambulance when he yelled that people like me will do anything to avoid a little responsibility. I spent the next 2 days in the hospital. The reaction was worse than usual because he had rubbed so much of the sanitizer into my skin and prevented me from washing it off immediately. My entire arm was covered in angry red welts, and it took hours for my breathing to completely normalize. On the second day, 2 people in business suits came to visit me. One was from Human Resources, and the other introduced herself from the legal department. The HR representative said they first wanted to make sure I was okay and getting the care I needed. The legal representative told me that they had terminated my supervisor immediately because his actions were completely unacceptable and violated multiple company policies. The HR representative also mentioned that they had contacted the police on my behalf because what he did constitutes assault, and that the police would probably want to speak with me when I was feeling better. The legal representative assured me that they would be covering all my medical expenses and that I would receive full pay for any time I needed to recover. 2 detectives came by the next morning to take my statement. They told me that my former boss had been arrested and charged with assault. They also mentioned that he'd been issued a restraining order and wasn't allowed to contact me or come within a certain distance of me. The whole experience was terrifying, but there was something satisfying about knowing that his arrogance and refusal to listen to medical professionals cost him his job and landed him in legal trouble. Some people think they know better than doctors, but reality has a way of catching up with them. I'm still recovering, but I should be able to go back to work next week. The company has assigned a temporary supervisor who actually read my file before meeting me. It's amazing what a difference it makes when people treat medical conditions, real medical conditions, instead of personal inconveniences. First, let me give you some background about where we live. We're in this quiet area with lots of elderly folks and families with young kids. The main road through our neighborhood is pretty narrow and winds around with all these curves. There's no sidewalks, so people are always walking along the road. It's just one lane going up and one lane going down, with a grass strip in the middle separating them. Recently, people started driving way too fast through here, which was dangerous with all the walkers. The city finally decided to install speed bumps to slow everyone down. They've been working on different sections of the road, blocking off parts while they pour concrete and paint the new bumps. Now my son has some developmental delays and needs to see specialists regularly. Even with everything that's been going on with the pandemic, he still has to go to his appointments in person. My husband usually handles the driving since I work different hours. So this particular day, my husband was driving to pick up our son from his specialist appointment. Our 1-year-old was in the back seat in his car seat. My husband was being careful, driving slowly over the newly installed speed bumps, and there were a few cars following behind him doing the same thing. When he came around one of the curves, suddenly there were bright headlights right in his face. A shiny Mercedes was charging straight at him in his lane. My husband slammed on the brakes and probably said a prayer or two, especially with our baby in the back. The cars behind him managed to stop without anyone crashing, thank God, but that Mercedes pulled right up to about an inch from our van's hood. That's when Karen made her entrance. She laid on her horn for what felt like forever, then got out of her car. This woman was a picture of what people call high society. Perfectly done hair expensive clothes, and her nose so far up in the air you'd think she was trying to sniff clouds. She took one look at our slightly beat-up family van, and you could just see her decide that my husband wasn't worth treating like a human being. Karen demanded that my husband move his car immediately, claiming she had the right of way and that he was blocking her. My husband explained that she was actually the one driving on the wrong side of the road. He pointed out that there were cars behind him, making it difficult for him to move, and suggested that since the lane was wide enough in that spot, she could move her car over so they could both pass. Karen refused to listen and kept insisting that he move his car. She threatened to call the police if he didn't comply right away. My husband had been pretty patient up to this point, but he'd had enough of her attitude. He told her he'd do her a favor and make the call himself. The drivers in the cars behind him were getting frustrated too and started yelling at her to just move out of the way. So my husband called the non-emergency police line and put it on the car's speakers, turning the volume all the way up so everyone could hear. He explained the situation to the operator, who was pretty young sounding. The operator made a comment about guessing the woman's name was Karen and said they'd send an officer right away. Even the operator knew what type of person they were dealing with. Karen heard this and got this smug look on her face like she'd won some kind of victory. She was practically gloating while she waited for the police to arrive. When the police car pulled up, Karen was the picture of confidence. She probably thought the officer would take one look at our old van versus her expensive Mercedes and automatically side with her. The officer walked over to my husband first to get his side of the story. My husband explained everything while our baby was in the back seat just singing away, happy as could be. Then the officer walked back over to Karen to hear her version. That's when things got interesting. When the officer was talking to her, I guess he was really taking in the whole situation. He looked at how close her car was to ours, looked at our baby in the back seat, and started putting two and two together. Karen's smugness just melted away and turned into shock and outrage when the officer pulled out handcuffs. My husband actually managed to snap a picture of it on his phone. Turns out she wasn't just getting cited for blocking traffic. The officer was charging her with reckless driving and driving to endanger because of how she charged straight at our van. But here's the kicker. She was also getting charged with child endangerment. That officer had noticed our 1-year-old in the back seat and saw exactly how close her Mercedes had come to ramming into us head-on. If my husband hadn't been able to stop in time, our baby could have been seriously hurt or worse. The officer asked my husband if he'd be willing to testify against her in court. We have no idea if anything will come of it, but my husband said yes, without hesitation. Karen spent the rest of the time alternating between trying to argue with the officer and shooting dirty looks at my husband. After they took her away and cleared the scene, my husband was finally able to continue on to pick up our son. The other drivers who had been stuck behind him were really supportive, and a couple of them even gave him their contact information in case he needed witnesses. When my husband got home and told me what happened, the whole thing was just so ridiculous. She was so convinced that her expensive car and attitude made her more important than everyone else that she literally drove on the wrong side of the road and then tried to blame my husband for it. The really scary part is thinking about what could have happened if my husband hadn't been able to stop in time. Our baby was right there in the back seat, completely innocent and helpless. Karen was so focused on her own convenience and sense of entitlement that she put a child's life at risk and didn't seem to care one bit until the officer explained the charges to her. I've been working at this repo company for about a year now, and I've seen some crazy stuff. But this story from 2008 still takes the cake. I'm a former Marine turned Army guy who did 10 years total before getting out and buying a house here in Texas. After bouncing around different jobs, I finally landed this gig with the repo service. My boss is this woman who's got all the classic traits you'd expect from someone named Karen, but she's actually one of the good ones. She runs this place with an iron fist and doesn't take crap from anyone. So I'm in the office one day talking to my boss about some routine stuff when this young guy walks through the door. My heart sank when I saw him. This kid had 2 black eyes that looked fresh and his arm was hanging in a sling. You could tell just by looking at him that someone had worked him over good. The kid walks up to the counter and asks how hard it would be for us to help him repossess his own car. Now that's not something you hear every day. My boss calls her daughter over and tells her to pour the kid some coffee. Then she leans back in her chair and tells him to explain what happened. The kid takes a sip of his coffee and starts talking. Turns out he's military too, just got back from deployment. Before he left, he'd been dating this local girl who lived outside Fort Hood. Now, anyone who's been around there knows that's usually not a smart move, but young guys don't always think with their heads. The kid explains that he managed to save up enough money from his previous deployment to buy himself a used black Dodge Charger. That car was everything to him. He met this girl shortly after he bought it, and she was always asking if she could drive it. He always said no. My boss tells him that was smart and asks what happened next. The kid continues his story. When he was getting ready to deploy, the girl kept asking if she could borrow the car while he was gone. He kept saying no, but she wouldn't let up. Finally, he gave in, but only if she agreed to take care of his apartment while he was away. She said yes. So the kid deploys, and this girl is supposed to be looking after his place. When he comes back for rest and relaxation leave, his apartment is spotless. He pulls his car out of storage, drives to see the girl, spends a few days with her, then hands over the keys before going home to visit family. After that, he finishes his deployment and comes back to Texas, expecting everything to be normal. The kid tells us that when he walked into his apartment, there was dust on everything. It looked like nobody had been there in months. His bedroom was completely torn apart. Drawers pulled out, stuff everywhere. He tried calling the girl but got no answer. My boss asks if she stole anything. The kid says that's what he thought at first. He checked his safe, which was hidden, and it hadn't been touched. So he grabbed his spare car key and called a buddy. They drove over to her place. This is where it gets good. The kid and his friend pull up to the girl's house, and there's a car in the driveway that he doesn't recognize at first. But when they get closer, he realizes it's his Charger. Except this girl had painted his beautiful black Dodge Charger hot pink and put these ridiculous 24-inch spinners on it. The kid explains that he tried his key just to make sure, and the lights flickered when it unlocked. His buddy was laughing his head off. He went to the front door, and she answered. I asked what she said when she saw him. The kid tells us he asked her what happened to his car. She looked him straight in the eye and told him it was her car now. The kid says he walked away and got in his hot pink mess of a car. But when he started it up, 4 big guys came out of the house. One of them had a baseball bat. They yanked him out of the car and proceeded to beat the hell out of him right there in the driveway. His friend had to pull his concealed carry pistol to get them to back off, then rushed the kid to the hospital. My boss asks if he called the cops. The kid thinks his friend did, but he was pretty messed up. His friend drove by her house a bunch of times while he was in the hospital, and the car was never there. My boss stares at this kid for a long moment, and I can see the wheels turning in her head. Then she gets that smile that usually means someone is about to have a very bad day. She asks if he has the paperwork for the car. The kid hands it over, and my boss's smile gets bigger. She tells him she's going to need the girl's phone number. The kid gives it to her, but he has no idea what's about to happen. My boss hands the phone to her daughter and nods. The daughter calls the number and pretends to be someone the girl met at a club last weekend. She asks if the girl wants to go out and party that night with some friends. Whatever the girl says on the other end, the daughter smiles and gives my boss a thumbs up. The plan is set. That night, I park my tow truck at the club and wait. Sure enough, this girl shows up in the hot pink Charger, parks it, and goes inside with her friends. I give them about 5 minutes to get settled, then drive up and hook that car up quick and quiet. When I'm pulling out of the parking lot with the pink monster in tow, I see the girl come running out of the club. She's waving her arms and screaming, but I'm already gone. The next morning, I'm back at the office doing paperwork when the phone rings. My boss picks it up, and I can hear screaming coming through the receiver from across the room. My boss tells the caller that if she has the registration, she's welcome to come pick up her vehicle. The screaming gets louder. My boss tells her that if she wants to call the police, she should go ahead and do that. Then she hangs up. But here's where it gets interesting. I happen to look out the window and there's the girl standing next to a car in the vacant lot across from our office, having what looks like a complete meltdown. After my boss hangs up, I watch the girl get in the passenger side of the car. I tell my boss she needs to see this and ask her to verify that it's the same girl. My boss looks out the window and starts grinning like the Cheshire Cat. She confirms it's definitely her. My boss picks up the phone and calls the owner of that vacant lot. She explains the situation and asks if he wants the car towed. He says yes. So I drive my truck over to where these two women are sitting in their car. I tell the ladies they can't park there because it's private property. The girl's friend says they're just waiting for someone. I explain that I understand, but they still can't park there. They argue with me and call me every name in the book. So I hook up their car and lift it partially off the ground. That forces them to get out. And they really tear into me then. But I show them the tow order, so there isn't much they can do about it. While this is happening, the kid shows up at our office. The girl sees him walk in and runs over there. I lower the car and follow her. When I get back to the office, all hell has broken loose. The girl is trying to grab the keys from the kid, but he's put them in his pocket. She starts hitting him in his injured arm and threatening him. She tells him to give her the keys back or she'll call her friends to finish what they started. My boss's daughter has already called the cops. I get between the kid and this crazy girl. I tell her to try hitting me and see what happens. Then she switches tactics and starts crying. She claims she just wants to get her laptop out for school and begs us to let her. My boss looks at the kid and tells him to hand the keys to me so I can get the laptop. I take the keys and go to get the laptop from the car. When I'm handing it to her, she lunges forward to grab it aggressively and knocks it right out of my hands. It hits the concrete hard. She screams that I dropped her computer on purpose and threatens to sue me. That's when the cops show up. She immediately starts her sob story about how we stole her car. The officers look at my boss, who just smiles and asks if they'd like to see the security footage. The cops watch the video and hear everything, including the girl punching the kid and threatening to send her friends after him. When they turn back to her, she's gone completely white. She tries to back toward the door, but the officers stop her. The officers tell her they need to talk about the car, about the kid's injuries, and about who exactly she was planning to send after him. She tries to deny everything at first, but they have it all on video. They arrest her right there, and the kid gets his car back. The kid tells us he doesn't want to be seen driving something that looks like it's advertising stomach medicine. He says he's going to trade it in for a GTO. Later, we hear all four guys who beat up the kid got arrested too. Turns out the girl had ratted them out to try to get a lighter sentence for herself. That was definitely the most satisfying repo I've ever done. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.